Russian forces had effectively admitted defeat in their infiltration effort around Novopavlivka and Ivanivka. After months of sending small groups through gaps in the Ukrainian line, the Russians stopped trying to build those penetrations into a larger advance and began pulling their main forces farther back below the river. Even Russian sources that had previously exaggerated isolated infiltrations as territorial gains now acknowledged that the situation had reversed and that the forward effort could no longer be sustained. The repeated attempts had become too costly to keep feeding with fresh troops, so Russian commanders abandoned the plan and pulled back from the area instead. That retreat came after Russian infiltration attempts repeatedly ended in heavy losses. Footage from the sector shows Ukrainian drones dropping grenades onto Russian soldiers as they advance through dense vegetation. Separate FPV strikes show Ukrainian drones flying directly into Russian dugouts and detonating inside them. Near Horikove, another Russian group advancing through vegetation was detected and eliminated by Ukrainian artillery and strike drones before it could establish new positions. Ukrainian FPV operators also destroyed multiple Russian BM-21 Grad multiple launch rocket system, supporting Russian operations in the Novopavlivka sector. These repeated losses showed why the infiltration effort had become untenable, with Russian soldiers being eliminated before they could build any lasting presence. As Russian forces withdrew from the Novopavlivka area, the troops still connected to the main line could pull back, while the infiltrators already deep inside Ukrainian territory were left behind. These small groups had slipped through gaps in the front and hidden in concealed positions, waiting for more soldiers to follow, so they could eventually gather enough manpower to attack and establish a lasting presence. In Andriivka, Klevtsove, Russian remnants remained well beyond the gray zone after Russia lost the ability to send additional infiltrators into the settlement, leaving them isolated inside Ukrainian-controlled territory. With the wider operation abandoned, those men lost the reinforcements they had been waiting for, while even drone deliveries of food and basic supplies stopped. They could no longer build enough combat power to attack or sustain themselves for long, because Russian commanders had effectively written them off and left them there to die or surrender.
Russian engineers are literally telling their troops to walk 20 kilometers carrying 2 anti-tank mines each. Ukrainian drone footage shows what happens next. A dramatic video, captured by the Ukrainian 225th Assault Regiment's Black Swans drone unit and translated by Estonian analyst War Translated, depicts an increasingly common phenomenon. Russian soldiers exploding after a nearby drone strike cooks off the ammunition the soldiers are carrying. The blast apparently took place somewhere in Sumy Oblast in northeastern Ukraine, where Ukrainian brigades have been slowly pushing back an incursion by Russian infantry. Infantry self-immolation is one of the second-order effects of the accelerating demechanization of the Russian armed forces as Russia's wider war on Ukraine grinds into its 42nd month. The Russians have written off more than 20,000 combat vehicles and other heavy equipment, far more than they can immediately replace through new production and the reactivation of increasingly scarce stored vehicles. With only a few exceptions, Russian troops now march into battle in Ukraine or ride on motorcycles. Even cargo trucks are in short supply, meaning the troops themselves are the supply line. But in carrying bullets, grenades, and mines on their persons, they risk self-destruction from drone near misses. Perpetua recently identified, in one shocking video, around 150 destroyed Russian trucks on a 2-mile stretch of one of the several roads threading west from the Russian stronghold of Selido toward the village of Shevchenko, a few miles south of Pokrovsk. That's a wrecked Russian truck every 70 feet. That road of death, which the Russians persist in using, with predictably bloody results, was patrolled by the drone team supporting one particularly aggressive Ukrainian battalion that held the line around Shevchenko and, in December, waged a successful campaign against a Russian force 20 times its size. The Ukrainian campaign halted the grinding, year-long Russian advance on Pokrovsk, although temporarily. The Ukrainians moved these drone units down to this area, and that's when they started setting up their kind of drone superiority, where they took complete control of the sky, Perpetua recalled. The Russians basically couldn't find drones, he added. Their drone would take off, Ukraine would shoot it down, and then attack the drone pilots, and they couldn't fly drones. The Russians were complaining of, like, a 10-to-1 or worse drone ratio. That drone advantage is what eventually led to this, stopping the Russian attack through shoving down all of these roads. Perpetua said, the Ukrainian drone pilots had this policy, where they wanted to first take out the Russian drones and then, once those drones were taken out, go for the supply routes. Heavy hexacopter Vampire drones fitted with night vision gear and carrying loads of grenades or mines, many of them flown by the famed Ukrainian birds of Magyar Drone Group, inflicted the most damage on the roads to Shevchenko. The Russians are adept at downing the 50-pound Vampires with 2-pound first-person view drones that blow up on contact. But having suppressed the Russian drone teams around Shevchenko, the Ukrainian drone teams could fly their Vampires with impunity. Smaller FPV drones joined the Vampires, including some fiber-optic models. After blasting every Russian supply truck in sight, the drones ranged farther south and east and located the depots where the Russian regiments were storing the trucks and other vehicles that remained. They went to every vehicle depot and just blew them all up. So they had no tanks, no BMPs, Perpetua mused. They took out all their MRAP armored trucks, and then they just shut down every single road, so they starved out the Russians. To reinforce Shevchenko, the Russians had to walk for kilometers. Their engineers were saying, we have to build a minefield, but we can't bring any trucks up. So everyone has to carry 2 mines. Perpetua laughed. So there's these videos of infantry marching up, and they're being told that you have to march 20 kilometers. You have to bring all of the food and ammo to last 2 weeks, and you have to carry 2 landmines. The practice is now widespread in the demechanized Russian military, already harried by Ukrainian drones, artillery, and mines. Russian infantry now have another problem: their own explosive baggage. Operators from Ukraine's first separate territorial defense brigade used an FPV drone to destroy a bridge over the Tsada River in the Bryansk region. Russian forces had mined the bridge, a fact discovered by Ukrainian troops. They took advantage of the situation to destroy the structure. Russian troops intended to use the bridge during a potential evacuation. Its destruction has rendered it impassable. The drone footage captures around a dozen TM-62 anti-tank mines, placed both on the bridge and on the support structure beneath it. Drones struck a fuel train at a railway junction in the city of Salsk-Rostov region on the night of July 29. The target is believed to have been a military train operated by Russian invasion forces and headed toward the Ukrainian border.